Welcome to the SmartTechCheck podcast, hosted by Mark Vena, your home for candid, insightful, and provocative conversations about the smart home automation, security, smartphones, PC and console gaming, and much more.
Hi, my name is Mark Vena, host of the SmartTechCheck podcast. Today is Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. Black Friday and Cyber Monday has come and gone, but that doesn't mean you can't still get a great deal on a special tech product for a loved one or even yourself before Christmas, if you can find it, of course. Joining me for today's podcast on holiday tech products and how to buy them is my usual trio of stalwart tech journalists, Rob Pegoraro, no, he's not in the Tommy Bahama store, who writes for Wirecutter, The Verge, and USA Today, John Quain, who writes for the New York Times, Smart Cities, and Tom's Guide, and Stewart Wolpin, who scribes for Twice, U.S. News, and Investopedia. Gentlemen, I know you're all over the globe. How are you?
Glorious and free.
Glorious and free. That's
very good, thanks.
Great to hear. Well, I was not half kidding. Rob, you're on the Big Island, right? You're just like on some type of retreat, you know, trying to get a sense of who you are as a person. Is that essentially it?
No. I am on the Big Island for Qualcomm Snapdragon Tech Summit, which is this gathering they do once a year, except last year it was virtual, where they talk about their new initiatives. They have a bunch of analysts and journalists here, and I should note they did cover my travel costs, as they've done for most of these attendees. And they do have, weirdly enough, they choose to have this take place on a resort in Hawaii and not, say, some cheaper venue in the middle of America. I think it is actually a matter of timing. Yes. Halfway across the Pacific means it's not too out of whack for time zones in China.
Well, I've been to many conferences. Actually, the other guys have been in that corporate location in San Diego, which is not a bad place either, but it's still not as nice as where you are right now. And I'm sure, I appreciate the disclosure, but I'm sure you're going to raid the mini bar and take back about $300 or $400 worth of alcohol. Stewart, how are you?
I got a couple of nice tote bags I'm coming home with.
Stewart, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was restful and just me, the wife, and a very lovely turkey with a recipe from Padmalakshi.
That's great to hear. And John, your Thanksgiving?
Very good. And I just finished the rest of my leftover chestnut stuffing yesterday, so I'm like, so now it's actually over.
and I'm sure the Christmas decorations or whatever decorations are up right now. That's what a lot of families do. Right after.
But I did buy more lights. Just got some more lights, so I'm like, I'm ready.
Yeah, some smart LED lights. Yeah, I know you're probably going to pitch those products in a second. But well, guys, what I want to talk about today is just the whole broad topic. You know, we're in the midst of all the holiday buying, got supply chain issues all over the place. That still has not abated. In fact, Apple, I believe they've warned this morning that they're having some ongoing chip issues that are causing them to lower demand expectations for the iPhone 13. They're not the only ones, of course. But I want to talk about this a bit here. Let's and who? I hear some like noise in the background. Is that you, Rob?
No, but your audio's going in and out a little bit. Could be the hotel Wi-Fi here.
Yeah. Anyway, now cleared up. Well, let's talk about myths about buying tech products. And what I mean by that is that I'll start with this myth. There's a perception that when the hottest product comes out, you're going to have to pay a premium price for it. And I have found in my experience that that's not really true. Even during a pandemic, you can still get deals out there on things that you want, depending on what they are, of course. If a particular product is hot, that may be an issue. But it's more the issue this holiday season, from my perspective, is more availability than it is pricing. There's some still pretty aggressive deals out there for different things. And, let me bounce it off each of you and get your reaction in terms of whether there's a myth that jumps at you in terms of, hey, this is not absolutely true when you're considering to buy a tech product. So let me start with Stewart on that.
Well, I mean, I don't know so much about myths about tech, but I think a lot of people are just find tech incredibly mystifying to buy because they don't know who or what to believe. And I think that is always the biggest problem. I'm sure all of us, being as tech savvy as we are and out there, that we get calls from friends and relatives asking about technology. And what we would consider to be easy to answer questions are still quite the mystery to a lot of consumers. So I don't think it's a myth that I think tech products are still incredibly difficult to buy for most people simply because they're not up on what the latest is. The other thing is much more of a caveat is that this time of year, you are going to see sales on a lot of older gear that has been sitting in stores inventory for a while. And of course, a consumer with all the weird alphanumeric model numbers would have no idea if they're looking at a 2021 model, a 2020 model, a 2019 model. So I think those are the biggest mysteries more than myths that there are about tech buying, especially around the holiday season.
No, I like what you just said, Stewart, because I spent the last week with my family. My mom just moved down to South Carolina, and of course, I was outfitting her her new home with every sport home gadget you could muster. And I must have went to the Best Buy in Bluffton, South Carolina. There's a shameless plug for Bluffton. I probably went into that Best Buy probably 5 or 6 times. And the number of TVs that didn't surprise me, of course, because there was Black Friday the following day. But I was really amazed by the number of older TVs that were on market. That if you didn't know better, now they were being discounted. The key for me is when you see a 75-inch TV discounted to $799, you're probably not getting the latest and greatest model. So I do think that people need to do more education because manufacturers want to clean out their inventories. What do you think about that?
Retailers want to clean out their inventories.
Absolutely. So, John, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think the biggest myth is that you're going to get a deal this year, in the holiday season on these technologies. The prices have dropped. Blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. The prices have not come down. TVs are about 10% more expensive than they were. And there is that issue because of the supply chain. You're seeing those older TVs sitting in some of the stores. In fact, I was in a Target today. It was my stop. And there were some older model TVs indeed sitting down there. You know what? There weren't very many of them. Like, just think pre-pandemic, if you walked into one of these stores, there was a stack, of TVs sitting there, all different models and sizes right by the front door. So you could just walk in, pay, and take it out. Not today. So, there's obviously an issue with some items like that. I mean, the really popular big screen TVs. And then I agree with, Stewart about the other myth about technology is, you just buy the latest model and that's good enough. These days people treat these devices much more personalized and it's not as easy. It's more like, what size is she? And is that the right size I should get? It's a trickier problem than it used to be.
Well, that's certainly true with TVs because I don't think a lot of people spend a lot of time, measuring the distance from the couch to the TV because people overbuy. They just can't use an 80-inch TV or a 75-inch TV when the couch is only 4 feet away. It's an experience issue. But let me flip that over to Rob. I want to get Rob pulled into the conversation.
Glad you mentioned TV sizes. You can definitely go wrong just buying on specs. More is not always better. Above a certain pixel density, whether it's a smartphone screen or a laptop or a TV, you're not going to see those extra pixels, and you're just wasting money for a number that looks good on the price tag on the spec sheet, but doesn't actually affect your enjoyment of it. And so that's definitely the case with TVs where, right here at this event, Qualcomm was talking up, our new smartphone chipset can record in 8K HDR. Who cares in the consumer space? You're not going to have, most people are never going to have a screen that can display that anytime soon. Right. Much less the bandwidth to get it anywhere. I tested this. 1 minute of 8K footage on the test phone I tried yesterday took up almost a gigabyte of storage. So no, that's not a consumer relevant feature. You should look at things like battery life. Does the phone have a headphone jack? I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with that shopping advice.
real quickly, just using the subject of TVs, because that's always one of the hot categories during the holidays. Are you guys not big fans of recommending buy as much as you can afford, or are you in the camp of, well, if a new model TV comes out, wait a year for the price to come down? Stewart, where do you what would you advise people?
Well, I think most people consider any TV that they go into a store to look at as good enough. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that mainstream consumers that I talk to who wouldn't know, what banding is or digital noise or any of the things that you and I would look at a TV screen and go, oh, that sucks, or that's great. Black levels. They don't have any idea. It all looks great to them. I think the key differentiator, I think that people probably want to look at is, and we're probably going to talk about this later, is access to streaming. And what I have been recommending to people is look for a TV that gives you fast, easy access to the streaming channels you want to get, as opposed to having to continually switch inputs or sign on to some service that then gets you to the streaming service. So I think a lot of this, considering how popular streaming services are, that you get a TV that makes it easy as possible for you and the members of your family to get to those streaming channels as quickly as possible.
I couldn't agree with you more, Stewart. In fact, I tell people, when you buy a TV, yes, the features are big, but if you don't buy, and they're virtually all, it's hard not to buy a smart TV. You almost have to buy a monitor, frankly, that doesn't have a tuner. And those are really not optimized for a TV viewing experience. But, I'm just a huge fan of the TCL TVs because they've got Roku built into it. And to your point is absolutely spot on. I mean, you're going to be visiting mostly streaming channels, and their interface is very simple to use, and they're not the only one. Amazon does the same thing with their Fire TV functionality in their own TVs, and they've partnered with other companies to embed their interface. But what about you, John? What's your are you one of those people? Hey, buy as much as you can, or just hold off until the prices come down?
Well, I have to evaluate a couple of TVs every week, and I have an 8K TV, for example, and everything's 4K. I'm much more of the proponent of buy the best picture you can. And the main reason is Roku. For $35, you're going to beat anybody's system out there. So don't pay attention to whether it has the smarts or not. Look at the picture. And the same thing about sound. Don't worry about the sound. That's something you can solve, with a much more economically. Just think about the picture.
Right.
Roku is great, and their devices continue to lead. There's still nobody better. I like LG's WebOS on the LG, OLED. So if I had money was no object, and I was just thinking about that, I might recommend you get an OLED. Still the best looking picture around, even given the new display technologies. And then if you don't like WebOS, and it has Netflix and everything on it, but if you don't like it, you can just buy a $35 Roku and stick it in the back. So exactly. I'm down with that. Actually, the LG OLEDs have pretty good sound, surprisingly, compared to other sets. But again, you're not going to find a deal on TVs. So just saying.
Rob, your last comment on this topic before we get to the next one? You're on mute, Rob. Let me take you off. Go ahead.
The whole buy as much TV as you can seems ridiculous to me. It's a TV, not a house or a car. It's not an asset that's going to appreciate in value. I agree. Streaming is pretty important. I would say look for a TV that has Apple TV built in, since that way you don't have to, your options to stream that are pretty limited. You can buy an Apple TV box itself, which costs way more than any other streaming media player. The Google Chromecast includes that, and having Apple TV on board means you don't need to do that switching between inputs. It's also much easier to cast stuff from an iPad or an iPhone. And so that's one way to cover your bases. And you still have a ton of choices since, Samsung includes Apple TV software on their TVs. So, it's not hard to find.
Well, let us get to the next topic here. And so this is kind of a broad question. We've been talking about TVs, but beyond TVs, what, Stewart, just kind of directed the conversation to you. What are the hot tech products that you see that beyond TVs that are the big ones that are on your radar screen? And what should people be prepared for? What are maybe the type of questions they should ask before they make that purchase? Before we talk about tips and how to get the best deal, any words of wisdom on that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Stewart. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, quite frankly, anybody, depending upon how long your shopping list. I'm a bah humbug guy myself. I haven't bought Christmas gifts in years. But if I were going to, I would opt for something. I think the best value, the gift value for the money out there, are true wireless earbuds. You can get a really good set of wireless earbuds for less than $100, even less than $150. And even if somebody has a pair, nobody's going to open a box of a new set and go, oh, this is awful. I'd rather have a bad tie, So for me, I think, and they're going to be readily available. I don't think that true wireless earbuds are being impacted as much as TVs are by supply chain issues, considering just how many vendors there are of these things. My only advice, obviously, is to try to stick to name brands. Very difficult to go wrong. You've got a wide variety of choices in terms of style, and whether it's for sport and workout, or whether or not just for plain listening. So true wireless earphones, or even Bluetooth headphones, are always, or gaming headphones, I think they're all a great, relatively inexpensive gift.
And it's a product, by the way, that you'll probably use every day.
Right. That's exactly right. It's something that people will use.
Yeah. John, what do you think the hot...
Stewart stole my idea, man.
I'll run it back.
I even have some right here, that to show. I think that's right. I think that is a good idea right now, and in different price ranges for all the reasons that Stewart mentioned, except for the tie thing. Nobody wears ties anymore, Stewart. It's pandemic, post-pandemic. That's not a thing. Look, T-shirts,
I'm pretty sure that where Rob is right now, that ties are illegal. That they arrest you.
Ties are out, yeah. And so I think those are a great price point too. And there's some really good quality true wireless earphones out there. So, go to the comparative website that has looked at several different models for the good sound, et cetera, because their extended battery life and everything. And as Stewart says, look, having a second pair is always good. Power runs out in the first one, or you can't find it, or you leave one in your office. It's a great to have a second thing. So I agree with him on that. TVs are still hot. They definitely are, and they are better than last year for all the things we said about them. Nevertheless, they are better. So that's still a good thing. It's just, it's not, you're not going to get the value you would have previously. And I think you will in more audio products, the things that aren't selling, flying off the shelves. The other thing I would recommend is that those Roku sticks and, over-the-top streaming boxes, again, it's an easy gift if somebody isn't using that. It's not too expensive, and it opens up that whole streaming thing. I mean, no one has as many streaming options aside from Roku. Amazon's kind of getting a few, and Google's got a few.
Except for YouTube TV, that whole Roku YouTube spat. I don't like it when customers feel like they have to do balance of power politics when deciding what streaming media player to buy, because apparently Google has been throwing its weight around with respect to Roku.
Right, so but nobody watches YouTube TV.
The YouTube app itself has been threatened in the latest plot twist.
No, Rob, actually, that's a good point. That bit me in the bottom 3 days ago, because I got my mom a TCL TV with Roku built into it, with the promise of being able to use YouTube TV for her local streaming channels. And then I found out, I recall, she had we had to switch to Sling TV because of course there was that problem. But I think Rob makes a really good point, is that, and this is a streaming issue, is that anytime you buy these streamers, there's these wars that go on in the background, and there's nothing more frustrating when you find that the streaming service is at war with one of the content providers, and they decide to just pull their content, by the way, with very little notice generally. And then you find out watch something that's hard. Rob, from your perspective, are there any other product categories that you think people should to talk about phones a little bit?
So we mentioned streaming media players. I'm personally interested in tablets, since Apple has updated pretty much the entire iPad lineup top to bottom. We've got a lot of choices there. And I think a lot of people hold on to iPads for a long time because they do age pretty well in general. Apple's good about providing software updates, but they do run out of space and you're not going to expand that in any way. So, I am personally looking, maybe not right away. I've got an iPad mini 5, the iPad mini 6. It's a completely new design. It does not have a headphone jack. Here we go again. But that's definitely an interesting upgrade option.
Yep. And the one thing I want to get, John, did you want to say something? John?
Oh, I just agree. I think that's a great, I forgot about the mini iPad. I really liked it. And, if it's available and you can get a deal on it or what have you, I just think it's a great idea. Definitely an overlooked product. Absolutely, Rob.
Well, and the nice thing about the iPad mini, that seems to be the product that a lot of older users, the elderly, like to use because it's so small. It's great for content. If you just want to read a book, read something, very small form factor. The other day when I was in the Best Buy store with my mom, she goes, "What is this? Let's just talk about this iPad Pro, this really big iPad Pro." My mom's like 5'2". She wouldn't be able to lift an iPad Pro, the 13-inch model, across the room, let alone a computer. So I think the iPad Mini is actually a very nice holiday gift. Let's talk about the last topic I want to hit, and that is shopping tips. We all have kind of suggestions. My big belief, especially whether it's a PC or especially Macs, is that one of the great resources. There's a few of them. They're not the only ones, but Apple Insider has a buying guide section that they update all the time with 6 or 7 of the big retailers, Adorama, B&H, which is a New York staple for retail products, and they always have deals. If you're willing. And by the way, I think if I'm not mistaken, Stewart will know the answer to this question, but I think if you buy from Adorama or B&H and they ship it outside the state, they'll eat the sales tax. If I'm not mistaken, and sometimes the shipping as well, which is always nice. But they have these. But people think of Apple Insider as kind of they're only just about product reviews or product comment or commentary related to Apple, but they have great. It's just a great source for pricing guides on just about anything Apple sells. What's your suggestion, Stuart?
Well, I'm leery of ordering anything online on the off chance that you're not going to get it by the holidays. I think the whole supply chain and shipping issue is now gotten to the point that if you haven't done it already, you are really rolling the dice on whether or not you're going to get it on time to wrap it and take it to wherever it is you're going to deliver it. Personally, I like that at the bottom you list subscription services. I still think one of the best gifts that you can buy is a gift certificate to one of the streaming services. Now, a lot of them, Vulture just published a really good buyer's guide for all the major streaming services where you can buy the gift cards and whatnot. And I think the caveat emptor for those is that in some cases you can gift a subscription to somebody who already has one that would elongate their existing subscription. Some of them limit you to only new subscribers, but you don't have to worry about it getting delivered. Most of them can be done online. You simply either give somebody a gift card or even a gift code, or even you just do it yourself and the email and the code is emailed to people. It removes the gift wrapping issue and the delivery issue. And I don't know of anybody, for instance, over social media talking about the Get Back documentary for the Beatles. How many people have been protesting that you can only get it on Disney Plus? I don't want to subscribe to Disney Plus. Well, for the Beatles fan in your family, you buy them a year's worth of Disney Plus and they wouldn't be happier.
John?
I was just looking at that recommendation. That's a great idea. I think, mine is about smart home gadgets and the Internet of Things. The cameras, those are actually being offered for sale at lower prices. The webcams and doorbells and that sort of device. The recommendation I'd have there is obviously you should expect a discount on those devices this holiday season, and also look at what the subscription policy is. Do those only work when you pay $19 a month, or does the model work have free online alerts, etc.? So that would be my tip about buying those devices. I am with Stewart. Look, I just bought some wrapping paper and I've been in the stores already. I'm like, the online thing, normally we would have said at this time of year or any other year, yes, of course, online, this is where you shop, this is where you go. But Stewart's right. This year, I'm seeing messages come back. Oh, it's not going to ship until then. But I'm also seeing Amazon revise some of those delivery dates and say, actually, we told you the 22nd of December, but now it's going to be there on the 10th. So
Right.
it's so unpredictable right now. Maybe there'll be a drop in online ordering, and then they won't have the delivery problem. So it's hard to tell. The stores seem full when I was out there for people shopping. So, but again, look at whatever you device, that monthly charge, and get the one that doesn't have the monthly charge.
Well, but and before I flip it over to Rob, but there's one product category that you won't have any supply chain issues with because it's all electronic, it's ether, are software apps. And by the way, depending on who the person is, I mean, there are just about every app out there, whether it's an iPhone app or whether it's a Mac OS app or a Windows app. All these companies have the ability to sell you that app electronically, where you could actually give it to someone as a gift. And there's some great utilities out there. Give someone the gift of security. Give them. No, I'm not pitching Norton antivirus, but giving them some type of antivirus application, or there's some wonderful utilities out there for every major platform out there. But it doesn't have to be hardware. It can be software, and they will get it on time. They will. Santa Claus will not be prevented from delivering that. So let me, Rob. What's your thoughts on that topic?
You're on mute, Rob.
I was trying to mute myself and then it muted me back again. So I would actually recommend against giving antivirus software because it's going to expire and then they will, if you stop paying, and whereas Windows Defender is pretty good actually. But I actually do like the idea of cloud storage. I just covered that in my USA Today column. Give people the gift of online backup and not having to worry about so much about running out of space in their devices. And that's pretty affordable too. Microsoft 365. Granted, giving Microsoft 365 as a gift feels like buying somebody's socks, but
or a vacuum cleaner.
I was actually a vacuum cleaner. That's not a bad idea either.
You guys are terrible. You really are terrible.
Yeah, for smartphones, I want to focus on that since I'm at a wireless industry conference. I would say avoid the trap of thinking you have to buy the flagship top of the line smartphone. Often they're not always that good. The flagship Google smartphone right now, the Pixel 6, does not have a headphone jack. It has an in-screen fingerprint reader that's apparently pretty glitchy. The Pixel 5a is $200 less, does have a headphone jack, has a traditional fingerprint reader on the back. I just bought one for myself, largely because of those reasons. And remember, because it's saying you're going to have to buy again in 2 years anyways. So do you want to spend, in the case of the Pixel 6, it is only $600. But when you get in and talk about a new iPhone, it's a lot more.
Rob, John, and Stewart, thanks for taking the time to join me for today's podcast. Lots of great tips, lots of great information for people. For our viewing and listening audience, please make sure that you hit the like and subscribe buttons at the end of today's podcast. And please don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Mark Vena, Tech Guy. And until next time, have a great week.